All right, we are back to chapter 9, flow of food service. All right, so here we are starting to talk about service and your temperatures, the rules for holding food. All right, so you got to hold your food above 135 degrees and below 41 degrees. So out of the temperature danger zone is 41 and below, above is 135 and above. So your hot boxes, if you go to a buffet and you have rice that's sitting in the buffet, it needs to be at least 135 degrees or higher. Big thing is you're always kind of constantly checking those temperatures to make sure that your food is staying at the temperature it needs to. When you're looking at the time that food can hold, so you have 4 hours before you have to throw away. So when you're looking at cold food, you got 6 hours. So I can go to a picnic and I can put a salad out on the picnic at 3 o'clock, and I got 6 hours with no temperature. I don't have to have any kind of ice or anything on it for 6 hours, but I have to throw it away after. When it comes to hot food, I can hold it for 4 hours. So hot food you can hold for 4 hours with no heat, and cold food you can hold for 6 hours with no temperature to it. So, but remember this, you got to throw it away after. You can't reuse it. So never reheat any of that. So once you've used it, it's done. Usually you're going to have, whenever you have food for a buffet or anything, you're going to have sneeze guards to protect it from contamination. You used to not see that. Usually they're always going to have some sort of utensil for you to use, so you're not using the same utensil for everything. You want to make sure that your staff is trained properly so that they know exactly how to maintain the buffet and hold the food and the utensils and everything like that. One, you want to make sure that it's labeled. You want to have the time that it goes in and the time that it must be thrown away. So again, you have 6 hours for cold food, 4 hours for hot food. Okay, you don't want it to exceed that level. When you're looking at the hot food, again, it's got to be above the 135 degrees. You want to definitely make sure you have the regulatory approval. Usually people are going to have buffets in a restaurant. They're going to have that approval already, but you want to have that in advance. When you're handling any kind of dishes and dishware, if you look at this, one, it's making sure, like if I have my phone here, I'm not going to have my thumb on it. You want to be underneath. You don't want to hold glasses where you're carrying them all and they're touching your body. You want to make sure that they are in the container. When it comes to forks, knives, spoons, anything like that, you're seeing more and more restaurants are going to where it's covered. It's covered in the napkin. It's not just silverware that's just sitting out on the table for people to come by and touch with their bare hands. And that's how you get the contamination. Any kind of food, you can't use bare hands to serve with people. You want to make sure there's tongs or spoons, whatever it is, but no bare hands. Even if you have gloves on, you don't want to just grab it and here's what you want it with your hands. If you have utensils, you use them. It's more professional, to be honest. And then ice, you want to make sure you have a scoop. So it's just kind of making sure that you're handling properly. If you're going to preset your silverware, make sure that it is wrapped. Any kind of extra, if let's say it's a 4-top and only 3 people come, you're going to want to make sure that you take away the silverware that's sitting there, that it's just not sitting there. And you can reuse that silverware that you just grabbed once they sat down. But if you leave it there throughout the eating process, it's got to be thrown away. I mean, not thrown away, but it has to be washed. You can't just reuse it. Definitely with serving food, you can't reuse. If you put bread in a basket, you got to and let's say you put 6 rolls in there for 6 people and 2 rolls come back. Can you reuse those 2 rolls? No, you got to throw them away. Once something goes out and it's been opened, like salsa or a dressing, like honey mustard or something like that, you can't. If they don't touch it, you still can't use it. because you just don't know. They might have spit while they were talking. You have no idea. So like if you go to a Mexican restaurant, they're never reusing that salsa, I would hope, or those chips, right? So that was your first appetizer. If it's a condiment packet, like let's say it's mustard in a packet, if people don't use it, you can reuse that because it's wrapped. Anything that's wrapped, you can reuse. But anything that's plate garnishes or bread that's uneaten, anything like that, you have to throw it away. Okay, prevent any kind of void bare hands, use utensils, use gloves, make sure everything is, that you're using safe sanitation. Anything that if you're using utensils, usually if I'm doing a buffet and I'm catering, I'm going to put a plate so that the utensil can sit on that clean plate, that it's not just sitting on a tablecloth or sitting in the food. You want to make sure that they're anything for take-home containers, they cannot be refilled. You don't want to reuse take-home containers. Anything that's not approved to be reused, you don't want to use. So you don't want to ever have that. Even though I know at home we do a lot of different things at home than what we do here in the industry. Containers that can be cleaned and reused, we're fine. Contamination in self-service, you're going to use the sneeze guards, you're going to have your display case, you want to make sure things are labeled so that people can identify it, and you want to make sure there's no raw fish, no raw meat, poultry, anything like that. You want to make sure it's all clean. Do not let customers refill dirty plates. That's why you'll see they don't want you to come back with your dirty plate that you just ate off of when you're in a buffet. They want to make sure that you're using clean plates. You want to stock displays and with correct utensils, and never use the ice that you use on a buffet. Never use that to fill up glasses for water or anything like that. That just would be gross. And then label bulk items. You want to make sure it's labeled with the date, the signature, all of that. When you're labeling, it needs to have, like any kind of bakery items, it needs to have the food manufacturer, it needs to have the product, it needs to have anything that is labeled in it, any kind of allergen in there, it needs to be labeled in that. If you're transporting food off-site, it needs to be in a clean container that's not going to have any leaking or spills. It needs to be labeled with time and date, and reheating instructions. Clean the inside of the delivery vehicle regularly, and check your internal temperatures. When transporting off-site, you got to make sure that personal hygiene, you need to have the internal food. Again, it needs to be labeled what the item is, the time, the use by date, the length. You got to know the length of the delivery route, and you don't want any kind of raw food or anything like that. Catering, and here's the thing, I've catered a lot in my life, especially here in Augusta doing the Masters. I can't tell you how many $1 million homes I've cooked in their garages where I have a stove and a table and a small refrigerator, and that's all I used. But you got to have hot water, you got to be safe. I would have soap and water that was hot. I would have my clean area, I'd have my trash cans away from me, and I would keep it as much as possible of the temperatures, that I made sure that everything was nice and safe, and gloves. But you got to be careful, especially caterers. I mean, guess what? I've been thrown into some crazy things, and you're like, but it works. People, as long as you really stay as safe as you can, it's fine. It's really the hot hold is just holding the hot food and making sure the cold food stays cold. Hot food hot, cold food cold, right? And you're good. Guidelines for temporary, the construction temporary units, they need to keep out dirt and pests. They got to apply for the food safety rules. It all needs to be disposable single-use items, and make sure that the drinking water is safe. and available for cleaning, sanitizing, and washing hands. So that would be if you had the unit. If you have a mobile unit, I will tell you this, usually a mobile unit, if you're going to do a food truck, you got to have a permit for different counties. It's not just for the city, but for different counties, because all the counties are different. You also, with a food truck, you need to have a kitchen that you prep in. You can't just prep just right in your food truck. That can't just be your only kitchen that you use. I know when I lived up in Atlanta, a lot of the food trucks had the shared kitchens that they would prep in the shared kitchen and then haul it in their food truck, and they did plenty of that, so that was fine. But it's just making sure that you've been checked by the food and health, and that you have the permits and the license to do all that. And then your vending machines, here, I don't know how anybody could ever eat a sandwich out of vending machines, but people do. They got to have the label, the date, and the date of the expiration. I've seen students get food out of there that I just go, really, I would never eat that, because you don't know how long it is, and they'll open it up and it's just like, oh. So yeah, throw it away. So usually you'll see that with a vending machine. And that's chapter 9. That was quick. That's a quick chapter too. So I think as we go through these chapters, your first chapters are kind of long, and you go through and they start getting shorter. So again, I need to apologize. I know, some of these things, I'm learning Moodle as you are. I'm trying to be ahead of the game, and I apologize for any inconvenience with it. I am learning quickly, and figuring out ways to do things. So with your quiz, I set up for the forum, definitely for day 2, by your quiz for day 3, I will have it all prepared and done for you, and we'll just do it like a forum. But again, I apologize for anything. I promise you, I'm not going to leave you hanging. I've had some students email it to me already. So, just hang in there. I promise you I'm with you, and anything that you need, I'm here. So let me know if you need anything. Thanks. Bye-bye.